Just for the fun of it, because a lot of people have suggested this to me. They said take a Snoopy harp or other cheap harp and try to tighten the gaps on it. Well, I did just that. And I don't have them as tight as a professional harp, but they're pretty tight. And it did do quite a bit for the sound. The harp itself, the reed is still dull. The decks are still dull. In the future, I might try taking a reed out, sharpening it, putting it back in, sharpening up the decks. But let's see how the sound is. I did quite a bit to the sound, actually. Quite a bit more volume we're getting out of it. This used to be a really, really quiet harp, but the gaps used to be huge. And now they're a little bit tight. Well, quite a bit tighter. Probably about 3 times as tight as they were. Not bad. Not as good as most of your real harps, but much, much better. And what I did, and I might do a tutorial on this, just because it was fun, and a lot of people have suggested it to me. I'm like, oh, it ain't worth messing around with them junk toy harps. And it wasn't actually that hard. I clamped it in my vise in this dimension and started to squeeze them shut a little bit. I did have to retighten the crimp on the reed, and then I made sure that the planes were still flat, so the bell ring was still pretty decent. But yeah, it's quite a bit louder than it was before. In the future, I might take everything apart, sharpen it. Might get a handful of them because they are dirt cheap. You can get them on the internet for $4 or $5. But yeah, I'm going to be doing more of that in the future, maybe toying around. And for those of you out there who don't want to mess with your real harps, get yourself a toy harp, play around with it, see if you can tighten up the gaps, because it does make quite a bit of difference if you tighten up the gaps. What I would suggest is be sure when you're tightening up the gaps that your tips don't get too tight. Tighten in the whole harp and then clamp it back in there. Move the tips apart just a little bit at the tips. Then clamp it back in your vise and tighten it back, because you don't want your tips tightening down on the end of your reed. So you want a pretty even gap all the way along there. Anyways, that's going to be it for fussing with a toy harp. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more harpery. Harp out. Harp out.